Christina Maidie Watson, nicknamed Tina, was brought into the world in West Germany on February 13, 1977. She was moved to the US while still a child and ultimately lawfully embraced by Tommy and Cindy Thomas. David Gabriel, known as Gabe Watson, met Tina while they were understudies at the College of Alabama at Birmingham, and they started dating in January of 2001. Regardless of a prior determination of tachycardia, PSVT, with consolation from her significant other, Tina started SCUB, a plunging illustrations, in January of 2003 and acquired her certificate not long before her wedding to Gabe on October 11, 2003. The couple had arranged a scuba trip in the incomparable Obstruction Reef for their vacation. Gabe was purportedly a certified insured salvage jumper, with experience making a plunge the lake at Oak Mountain State Park in Alabama. Gabe had finished 55 jumps when of their marriage, and Tina had just finished 5, or potentially 11, contingent upon the source. As an insured jumper myself, I observe that it is critical to take note of that 55 plunges doesn't mean 55 separate long stretches of plunging. A jumper could in fact finish. Express 4 to 5 makes a plunge one single day, on the off chance that they wanted. Furthermore, during the main degree of SCUB, a confirmation, a great many people end the course having encountered around 5 loggable plunges. So it is muddled on the off chance that Tina had even gone plunging beyond her underlying confirmation course, where she would have been firmly observed in an anticipated climate. There's a major contrast between making a plunge, a reasonable stale freshwater quarry, and the flighty sea. In any case, the couple traveled to Sydney prior to going to Townsville, Australia for their special first night. Despite the fact that Gabe had restricted vast sea experience and Tina had never made a plunge the sea, or assertedly under 30 FD 9 meters, previously they decided to jump the well-known, yet troublesome wreck of the SS Yongala, a traveler transport that sank in 1911. The plunge organization had offered a direction and directed jump with a dive master. However, the couple had denied. At around 10:30 am on October 22, 2003, the primary day of their jump trip, during a journey from the plunge boat Spoil Sport to the site of the SS Yongala, Tina passed out and sank to the last 98 f/30 meters beneath the water's surface inside a couple of moments of starting the plunge. Gabe guaranteed the flows were more grounded than they expected and that he answered a sign from Tina to get back to the plunge rope. At the point when he went to help Tina, he noticed a look of stress all over before she unintentionally thumped his veil and air controller free. At the point when Gabe recuperated his sight, Tina was sinking excessively fast for him to recover her, and he immediately surfaced to find support. He likewise expressed that an ear issue kept him from jumping further to help her, and that there was nothing in his background as a salvage jumper about how to get someone in a difficult situation to the surface. Gabe moved on board the Spoil Sport and cautioned jump educator Swim Singleton, who carried Tina to the surface, following 10 minutes submerged. She was taken on board the neighboring plunge boat Jazz II, where a specialist attempted to revive her for 40 minutes, while Gabe stayed on the Spoil Sport. However, she couldn't be resuscitated. One jumper close by at the time that saw the couple, named Dr. Stanley Stutz, saw Gabe participated in a submerged huge squeeze with his thrashing spouse, after which he set out toward the surface while Tina tumbled to the seafloor. It was subsequently found after one jumper, Gary Stempler, had fostered his plunging photographs that he had shot Tina by chance while snapping his very own photo spouse. The ghostly photograph showed Tina behind the scenes, lying face up on the sea depths. The day following Tina's passing, a post-mortem examination was performed by teacher David Williams. Williams tracked down proof of air embolism, however, no degenerative infection. He gave the reason for death as suffocating. Because of the unforeseen idea of Tina's passing and the clashing assertions later given by Gabe, the demise was examined by the Express Coroner's Office. Gabe had previously left Australia by this point and declined to return, so he gave proof through his legal counsellors. During the examination, investigators submitted proof that Gabe's story went against the record of his activities put away by his jump PC. A plunge PC is a watch-like gadget that tracks a swimmer's jump. They recommended the likelihood that he switched off Tina's controller and held her until she was oblivious, then walked out on and let her sink, prior to surfacing himself. As proof, they made re-establishments of different situations of what occurred. The re-establishments were led by police jumpers. Tina's family, who say they were never close with Gabe Watson, purportedly became dubious of their then-child in regulation after Tina's dad, Tommy Thomas, got a call from an accomplished jumper who was on the couple's plunging trip. The jumper, Ken Snyder, told Thomas he didn't accept Gabe Watson's anecdote about how his better half kicked the bucket. Tina's dad guaranteed that Gabe had asked Tina, right away before their wedding, to expand her life coverage and make him the sole recipient. Tina was covered in Alabama. Her remaining parts were uncovered in 2007 and moved to an alternate parcel purchased by Gabe. Subsequent to being educated by her family that roses and gifts were more than once being vandalized or vanishing from the gravesite in any event, when bound, police reconnaissance recordings showed Gabe eliminating them with bolt cutters and tossing them in garbage bins. Gabe said that he eliminated them since he realized Tina could never have needed plastic blossom game plans that would blur in the sun. She would have needed the new blossoms that he gave. He later said that when he eliminated the plastic blossoms, he was all the while going through the lamenting system and wasn't figuring obviously on all that he did. After much obstruction, Gabe voyaged intentionally from the U.S. to Australia in May 2009 to confront preliminary. At the preliminary on June 5, 2009, he argued not liable to kill and blameworthy to homicide. An investigator brought up that over the long haul, Gabe had given police 16 distinct variants of what had befallen Tina, and that none of those forms matched what the observer had seen. At the point when Tina was brought to the surface, her controller was still in her mouth, her tank actually had air, and tests showed no shortcomings with her hardware. The examiner depicted Gabe as an accomplished jumper prepared in saving overreacted jumpers, who had permitted his better half to sink to the seafloor without making any serious endeavor to recover her. Gabe was condemned to 4.5 years in jail, yet just served a year. Watson had remarried prior to serving his time in Queensland. Tina's family expressed that Gabe's year term was a humiliation to Australia. The day following the preliminary, Alabama Principal Legal Officer Troy Lord put in an allure with the Queensland High Court and furthermore kept in touch with the Queensland Principal Legal Officer. The Queensland Head of Public Indictments gave an assertion which said the choice to acknowledge Mr. Watson's supplication of blameworthy to murder was made after a cautious and careful assessment of the permissible proof and was not trifled with. Given the complex incidental nature of the case, Mr. Watson's confirmation that he penetrated his obligation to deliver help to his significant other at last implied there was no sensible possibility of demonstrating, for certain, that he was at legitimate fault for homicide. The Alabama attorney's allure was heard by the Queensland Court of Requests on July 17, 2009. The court was approached to expand Gabe's jail term to more than 2 years. The guard contended that Gabe had a flitting failure to understand the situation, had been blamed for a wrongdoing he didn't perpetrate, and had deliberately gotten back to Australia to help out the court, and that the punishment forced by the preliminary adjudicator was fair and just. 2 individuals permitted the indictment's allure, expanding Gabe's time of imprisonment by a half year to a sum of 18. In May 2010, the Alabama Principal Legal Officer declared he had data not yet disclosed and needed to attempt Gabe for capital homicide and seizing, affirming locale in light of the hypothesis that the supposed wrongdoing was arranged in Alabama. The principal legal officer requested of Australia for the proof held by police, yet was denied admittance until he gave a promise that capital punishment wouldn't be forced on Gabe, as expected under Australian regulation. Because of the declaration, Gabe's folks came to the guard of their child, ending their public quietness looking into it. Loved ones of Gabe addressed whether he had any thought process in the homicide, taking note of that his fondness for Tina had appeared to be certified. There was no disaster protection strategy naming him as recipient, and he seemed, by all accounts, to be genuinely crushed for a significant time. Frame following her passing. On November 25, 2010, Gabe was expelled to the US and promptly captured. The Alabama preliminary date was set for February 13, 2012, and Gabe was delivered on a $100,000 bond. In 2011, the probate court eliminated Gabe as head of Tina's home and named her dad, who likewise mentioned that her school and school pictures and yearbooks be returned. Gabe pursued against the decision and wouldn't give the court a stock of Tina's assets. Colin McKenzie, a key jumping master in the first examination, who had kept up with that a jumper with Gabe's preparation, ought to have had the option to bring Tina up, later withdrawn a lot of his declarations subsequent to being furnished with Tina and Gabe's jumper logs, endorsements and clinical chronicles, to which he had not recently approached. Colin then, at that point, guaranteed Gabe shouldn't have been permitted in the water, and never as a plunge mate for his better half, who had no untamed water scuba experience. Despite the fact that Tina had heart medical procedure to address an unpredictable heartbeat 2 years sooner, her jump application had expressed that she had never had heart issues or medical procedure. Teacher Michael Bennett, a main master in jump medication, expressed that Tina was unsuitable to plunge without leeway from a cardiologist. Moreover, it was found that Gabe had accepted his salvage certificate, ordinarily a 4-day course, subsequent to finishing a 2-day course in an Alabama quarry. He had no salvage insight and very little untamed water insight. Colin McKenzie is cited saying that Gabe could scarcely save himself, not to mention his significant other. Disclosures that Gabe required helped to put on his plunging hardware. The day of the episode highlighted that Gabe was really a statement-risky novice who showed a total absence of boldness when he deserted his better half. As expressed beforehand, the plunge organization had offered a direction and directed jump with a dive master, which both Tina and Gabe had denied. Organization head Mike Ball said his kin trusted Watson, accepting he was an accomplished and confirmed salvage jumper. The organization later conceded to neglecting to consent to somewhere safe principles and was fined. Ken Snyder, the one who supposedly called to tell Tina's dad of his doubts, told the Alabama court that Gabe Watson's adaptation of occasions isn't conceivable. In the interim, Snyder's better half, Paula, portrayed Gabe Watson as alarm struck after his significant other kicked the bucket. She said she asked what she could do, and Gabe said he could utilize an embrace. So she embraced him. Paula said Watson was in a daze and continued onward over what occurred. Examiners guaranteed Watson expected to gather $130,000 in extra security after Tina kicked the bucket, or $165,000 relying upon the source. Yet Watson's legal counselors contend that he didn't gather a penny following his better half's passing, since her dad was the recipient, and the disaster protection sum was just $33,000. Gabe was likewise kept any from getting his movement protection cash. An Australian cop affirmed that Watson was quiet and agreeable until he was informed he could never have his jump PC back. Evidently, Gabe and his better half had in no time gotten back to the boat toward the start of the plunge on the grounds that Gabe's jump PC was blaring. It was erroneously introduced to demonstrate that the battery, after fixing the battery, they continued their plunge. Investigators fight that was a ploy to move his better half away from different jumpers to kill her. Gabe's guard guaranteed that Gabe and Tina had picked a plunge on a piece of the incomparable obstruction reef that was known for its warning circumstances and solid flows. Tina's hardware additionally comprised of 20 pounds worth of loads, which were excessively weighty for her to oversee sufficiently. Tina had supposedly overreacted once during her quarry jumping class in an overflowed rural stone quarry. Gabe's attorney proposed that she might have overreacted again in the lethal jump. Monetary requirements made it challenging to accumulate sufficient proof for the Alabama case. Investigators couldn't stand to create key observers from Australia and couldn't present key proof developed by Australian police. Police likewise uncovered an email that Watson had sent the jump administrator 5 months before the wedding trip, asking about the plunging conditions at the SS Yongala site. A worker answered that, on the grounds that Tina was an unpracticed jumper, she ought to either take a direction plunge or not jump at the site by any means. Neither occurred, and the email went against Watson's assertions to police after Tina's passing that he knew nothing about the plunge before we got it done. The adjudicator wouldn't permit the proof to be utilized, on the grounds that the representative couldn't affirm. The appointed authority likewise would not permit Tina's dad to affirm that Watson had requested his little girl to expand the worth from her extra security strategy. He additionally decided that proof of Gabe's weird way of behaving with respect to eliminating blossoms from Tina's headstone following Tina's demise was not admissible. The Alabama judge concluded there was insufficient proof to proceed with procedures and tossed the case out. Gabe Watson served no further time in jail. All in all, did Gabe Watson kill his better half? By and by, I figure there might be plausible that he murdered her. It's absolutely difficult to tell, with every one of the clashing allegations for this situation. Furthermore, a considerable lot of the articles looking into it have differentiating or befuddling proclamations on the timetable of occasions, presenting the defense significantly more challenging to sort out. In the event that he didn't kill his significant other, maybe Gabe Watson was simply too self-important about his jumping skills and found himself mixed up with this tight spot. He forgot to get the legitimate help of an aide during the jump and consoled his significant other with a serious ailment that she would be fine during this cutting-edge plunge, since he was a particularly experienced jumper, despite the fact that she was scarcely insured. What do you think?